I shower with it on. I swim with it on. I'm trying to figure out how to scuba dive is my next thing.
Sounds like some Indiana Jones shit where the hat never comes off regardless.
Nah, how you doing? Did you tell me
Okay.
you dropped your daughter off college this past weekend?
Yeah. So it's been a week. We dropped her off. I mean, we last saw her Wednesday, I guess, but yeah, we went up there Tuesday last week. So she's getting all settled in. Classes started yesterday. So yeah, all the college stuff.
No, that is good news. Do you have
Yeah.
any other kids? Or are you empty nest now?
No, I still got a 16-year-old in the house. He think he's going to Auburn though. He's going to stay fairly local.
Okay.
Relative. I mean, Charlotte and Indiana, that's a hike. So, Auburn by comparison feels pretty close. So
No,
he's doing a dual enrollment program right now with Auburn, so he's kind of committed at this point.
yeah, dang, yeah. He's he knows what he wants at an early stage. Now, that's good news.
He thinks he knows what he wants. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, he's making progress with the dual credit, so
Right.
that's definitely a good start.
Yeah,
Rather
sure.
than just generally, he probably find other opportunities as he go more into it. But definitely wanted to have a conversation with you, get some feedback on the deck, and find out if there's anybody. Oh, yeah, you're like this, but
Yeah.
find out if anybody locally that you can recommend we talk to as we're on this fundraising journey. And so there's a few different ways we can do the call. I sent you the email deck, but we could definitely go through a 5-minute verbal presentation and do a bit of Q&A from there. And then pretty much I'm always looking for pointers and feedback on what to go to next. Was the mindset I had on the meeting.
Let's do this. Let's just I'm going to share my screen and let's just run through the deck real quick together. If there's anything like I think what I want to do is instead of you presenting it, you got to think about in your fundraising, the first version of your deck that's the most important deck is the one that you're going to send out, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to end up. Give me 1 second. That thing. Let's see. That's it. All right. I assume you guys can see that. Yeah. Cool. So this is something that's funny. This has been kind of an evolution over time. I was just working with somebody in Huntsville, actually a couple of people in Huntsville, talking about their decks and kind of the way to think about it, etc. And one of the things that's been coming up in those conversations is that decks in general are not being viewed the way that they used to be viewed. And what I mean by that is there used to be two versions of a deck, the emailed version and the presentation version. I actually think that there's probably argument to be made that there's like 3 versions. The first version is the email one, which is really, really short. The second one is kind of what I would call the associate presentation deck. God, what is going on my screen? And then the third one is like the full presentation with, an appendix that, supports a data room, et cetera, et cetera. So the way that I look at it, like if I'm looking at your deck, and I say this for every deck, one of the things that I think is changing is you lead here, obviously, with the problem, which is the way that decks have been written for years, right? I actually am starting to believe that you want to write these decks almost upside down, meaning that what is the opportunity you're presenting to this person who's receiving the deck? So if the person receiving the deck is an investor, then you want to start with like, why should I care, right? As an investor. Because if you start with a problem, you're hoping they care about the problem. But if you're starting with the opportunity as far as like the market size and the financial opportunity and all of those things, then you don't have to worry about them caring about the problem as much to get their attention. I do think we very much live in a TikTok culture, even with investors, which is you get about 90 seconds and then you turn into Charlie Brown's teacher, where it's just you're making noises from your mouth. Nobody's listening.
Matt, you go back. You said doing the deck backwards. You mentioned market size being one of the first kind of slides. What was it? Was like a financial projection? I didn't catch the other thing.
Like what's in it for the investor? Like, you know, if they're going to invest in you, I hope they want to solve the problem because you guys are solving a really important and meaningful problem, but they definitely want to make money, right? And the way that they can see themselves making money is, what is it that this opportunity looks like, right? So if I go to your last slide right here, this is getting to that, right? Which is, I don't know that this is, golly, I hate when it does that. I don't know that this is slide 1. I don't know that 14 is slide 1, but it's probably slide 2.
Yeah, it reminds me of Shark Tank, where in Shark Tank, if you watch the TV show, they say, hey, they immediately go into, we're raising this amount for this amount because we see this opportunity in terms of how they tell the story. And I thought you were going to say, I've been seeing a lot more companies start with their team first than the problem as well. But it's interesting. I mean, just thinking of it as a salesperson, right? You know, they want shares that's going to grow. You know, It's kind of like what we're selling here. You buy shares and these shares will grow based on us hitting our next round of funding or some other opportunity. And so it sounds like concretely, we don't even include the opportunity, like the market size in terms of opportunity in this deck, which is interesting that you pointed that out as well. We haven't been getting a ton of questions about market size, but we also have been limiting ourselves to only talking to like healthcare type of investors. But it's good that you mentioned that because you just scrolled through it and we did not put market size inside the email, you know, the email deck. And I like that you said as well, I heard you say is that these decks should be a little bit shorter in terms of just catching people's attention to go to the next slide. And so I know this deck is like 12, 13 pages. I've been saying, but yeah, I'll stop there before I ask the other question so you can get
so I mean, I think if you wanted to stick with the problem slide being first, I think the very next slide has to be, well, what does that translate into opportunity?
Okay.
You know, from a business model perspective. And if it seems too coarse to be about how anybody makes money solving this problem, and I understand that reaction, then talk about it from a business model perspective. Like, why does this problem lend itself to a profitable business model? Because at the end of the day, unless you're getting grant money, the only reason somebody's investing in you is that investment will become more valuable over time. And theoretically, the only reason that an investment becomes more valuable over time is that the company gets bigger, and the company gets bigger as measured by more revenue. And more revenue is a reflection of the market and your ability to execute within that market. So, course or not, at some point in time, you got to talk about the opportunity in financial terms, right? In revenue terms, market size terms. So if you went problem, this is what the market looks like, and then actually start talking about, and this is the upside down part, like your 14 slide, change this from the ask to this is what we're doing. Or just like, you know, I would maybe just get rid of the ask part of it, get rid of the raising $1 million and double down on the metrics around your business right now. Right? The 480K ARR, that's solid. $50,000, only $50,000 in monthly burn rate. That's solid. $40,000 monthly recurring revenue from 200 pages. That's solid. Like, those could literally be 3 bullet points. and nothing else on this slide, right? Maybe leave the iconography because I like it, but you can get rid of the ask and the raise and all that stuff. I don't know that you need an ask slide in most of these decks because
Really?
frankly speaking, if they're interested, they're going to ask you, what are you trying to do? What's your raise? Well, we're raising $1 million. We're doing under these terms, you know, et cetera, et cetera. This is what we're looking for. Because again, you want to be careful not to negotiate against yourself, right? If somebody says, hey, I want to give you $2 million at a valuation cap on a convertible note that's twice what you expected, you would hate to have like negotiated against yourself for half that amount of money and half that amount of valuation cap, right?
Yeah. And so the metrics that stuck out to you was the goal of our annual recurring revenue goal, the expense goal, 50K monthly burn, and then the monthly recurring revenue were the 3 metrics that stuck out to you. And
I also think you can think about what is it that you want to highlight that you've already accomplished. So if these are just goals, these aren't what you've actually done, then talk about what you've actually done. Talk about your traction, right? So here's the problem, here's the market opportunity, here's what we've done so far, and then you can get into the how we do it, why that's unique. At the end of the day, you're trying to do a couple of things. You're trying to figure out or answer for anybody who's reading this. Why us? Why this? Why now? Why should I care? Right? And I think leading with the why should I care is the best way to get engagement from an investor. So it has to start with like, show me a compelling reason that I should pay attention to the next 8 slides. You know, think about it. You know, when you go in, have either of you guys ever take like a journalism class in high school or college or anything?
Yeah,
In
middle school, but yeah,
like bury the lead or something. Is that what you're referring
Well,
to?
kind of. So the whole point of every hard news story, meaning that it's not a fluff piece, it's not a feature piece, it's not an editorial, it's not storytelling. It is the lead, LEDE, is the who, what, when, where, how, and why in a single sentence. And I was a journalism major in college, and when you literally spend a semester figuring out how to write leads, because it sounds really easy until you try to do it. Grammatically correct, without a bunch of Oxford commas, right? To write a lead that has the who, what, when, where, how, and why in a single sentence. And then everything behind that starts to go from, that's the most important thing. And the idea is that if I can get you to read the lead, then I can get you to read the rest of the, right? YouTube, TikTok, the rest of them, they all have that, right? What's the hook? You guys need the hook so that you can start going like, this is the most important thing. If you don't hear anything else, I want you to hear this. I also think this is what's going to get you engaged for me to tell you the second most important thing, then the third most important thing, then the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. To that point, are all these people on your team slide working full time?
no.
I don't love it then.
Mm-hmm.
Just being honest. Like if you guys are going to show a $50,000 a month burn rate, then represent your team as who is on there full time. I got to be honest with you, unless somebody is a world-renowned scientist or healthcare provider, no one fucking cares that they're an advisor of yours. This is just tough love. I'm being honest with you.
For sure. I get they're not full-time now because we don't have the burn to support it. But when we do get the money, they will become full-time.
It's kind of like once we raise, and I've been getting mixed feedback on the burn. It's like once we raise, it'll be, once we hit our fundraising goal, that's how much we expect to spend each month to achieve our financial goal. So people, I may drop that or add more clarity because you're the third person to say, oh, you're currently spending X amount of dollars at this month. Right now, we're only spending anywhere between 10 and 15K currently. It is not the 50K.
Well, let me stop you there. I think that's a weak metric in general. Like if you've got better metrics to share about what you've done and the traction you have right now, share that metric. Burn rate is great to show capital efficiency, but it is a lesser metric than how many pilots have we done? How much data have we collected? What did we generate in revenue? How many grants did we get? Like those are all more important metrics than what your potential burn rate is going to be.
Matt, just to push on that, the reason why we put the burn is to show how long the $1 million will also last us as well. And so like when we can get to like profitability, but like, yeah, what are your thoughts there? Because that's some of the questions that we received is like, all right, well, how long, till you get to profitability, what it will be your current burn and all these other things. But yeah, what are your thoughts there?
I mean, I think you want to be prepared to answer those questions. I just don't know that it needs to be in a deck.
Fair.
So in simplest terms, like if you want to talk about use of funds, that's a slide that a lot of people will put in there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you don't have, we're raising $1 million in whatever version of the deck we're talking about, then you don't need that slide, because use of funds with no like funding target doesn't really mean anything, right?
Yeah.
So you could do it by percentages if you wanted to, but frankly, based on how much you raise, those percentages might change. So even that's a little bit funky. I think that it's fine to talk about it. I think it's fine. It's probably something that at some point in time in your full deck with, 6 slides of appendix or whatever it is behind your, 15 presentation slides, that's fine to put something in there about that. I'm not surprised you're getting asked questions about it, but you might be getting asked questions because you're not talking about use of funds in a way that they're translating into, okay, well, if they're raising $1 million and this is how they're going to use the funds, then I can kind of back into their runway.
Yeah. We do have 2 traction slides. I like that you mentioned, and you scroll up one more. Oh, I guess I removed it. And I moved the really nice. These are the 2 that we have that are media traction, and we have one that I guess I removed, the big momentum slide on our progress over since 2023, 2024. But these 2 here are our immediate.
I mean, I don't like to you're talking about the one where like inception of like, oh, it started in 2022. Yeah, man, you said talk about pilots. I sometimes don't like to talk about pilots because it feels like the conversation could be distracting, given that we started out in pediatrics and now we're in geriatrics. And it's like, well, how did you make this big jump? And it's like the business model had to support it. And so I feel like it's not helpful, but from your lens as an investor, how do you see that? And then of course, like nobody wants to talk about like how many times they pivoted and all that kind of stuff. So
I don't know. I mean, if I'm looking at it, if the terms end up being reasonable and I'm excited about the space, I really don't care if you've pivoted 2 or 3 times before I put money in. If anything, I'm looking at it and go, that you made a mistake on somebody else's dime, right? Or you made a pivot and somebody else funded those pivots. I'm not funding those. Okay. I do think there's an opportunity to talk about like, hey, this is where we started, this is what we learned, and this is why we're now doing this instead, right? If anything, it shows that you're smart, learning, capable, and able to synthesize information that you get from the market into your approach. I think that's a plus, not a minus.
Yeah, but here's what we learned. That's more of like the third presentation you were talking about of like we have more time to discuss like, here's what we did from P1, pilot 1 to pilot 3. That's not something I would send in like an email text.
Yeah, I mean, so let's just look at this slide, this early traction highlights. I think if you pull yourself out of this and look at this as like, I don't know what any of this means. I haven't looked at any of this information right now. My guess is that 3 of these 5 bullet points you would not include in the slide, right? So I have no idea what 90 minutes a month of patient engagement with coaching devices and asynchronous engagement. I have no idea what that means. I have no idea why that matters. You do, because it's in comparison to something else, but there's no comparison here. So is 90 minutes a lot? Is 90 minutes not that much? What is asynchronous engagement? I understand that you're going to present this stuff, but understand first version of this, you're not presenting, you're emailing, right? And then 2 hospitalizations prevented out of how many, right? Reducing potential costs for whom by $30,000. Like, I think this is a slide that illustrates you guys probably need to take a step back and go, okay, I got to pretend I don't know anything about this stuff. because this is a very insider-ish feeling slide.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me feel like we need like 5 different versions of decks because we try to pitch more to health kind of related investors that have some type of background. So we're not wasting too much time educating, but then like there are some investors that are completely green to it, to where it's like, oh yeah, like we pitched to Alabama Power, and he was like, yeah, I have no idea. It's
Right.
like, yeah.
So here's what I would suggest you do. This is the suggestion that I've been making recently with a bunch of different teams across industries. So I think that there's the first version is if you can do it, this is hard, is not actually a deck. It's an infographic that's embedded in the email. Okay. So it's literally a single page as an infographic. It's super tight. It's super numerically based because people process numbers much faster than they process words. In an infographic that literally is, we'd be really interested in talking about our current fundraise. Here's a little information about our company and what we're trying to do. Boom, it's embedded in there. There's not even something they have to click on or open.
Is it
Like,
something
there's
similar
really no
to is it something similar to more of a one pager or an investment memo? Is that the type
So
of
it would be, let me try to find, like, you ever seen one of my Prosper investor updates?
No,
Probably
no,
not. I don't know. Well, I don't know why you would. You're not an investor. Let's see. I'm gonna try to pull this up so you can see it. I think this is one.
Matt, I mean, you just told me so much about yourself that you were a journalism major. I could definitely see you on MSNBC, like a reporter. That makes so much sense.
Can you guys see this one pager?
Yes, we can see it.
So this is what I'm talking about, and probably even a simpler version of this. This goes in every single one of the things because this is the first page of every one that I do, and I assume this is all they're going to read. Okay. Mostly numbers, couple of words, right? Phrases, bullet points, but no like big long sentences. I think I have 3 sentences in this entire thing that's not a disclosure, or 2 that are not a disclosure, right? So it's all images, it's all numbers, right? So that being said, this is what I'm talking about. This is what goes embedded in the email. So there's nothing for them to click on, nothing for them to open on, no friction whatsoever. It's like they kind of can't help but see it. You get what I mean? And if it's designed well enough, they'll actually read through it. And if you can get them to this, then you get a response. Then once you get a response, then maybe now we're talking about, let's see if I can get this back to, sorry, back to this. Nope, that's not it. Close that. You guys can see that your deck again on screen. I hate how they've changed this interface. Doesn't make any sense. But anyway, that would be probably the first thing. Then the second one is going to be maybe this deck. But this is the second part I was going to tell you. Here's the challenge I want to give you guys. It's called the 10-20-30 rule. Okay. 10-20-30 means 10 slides total. That includes your contact slide and your title slide. So you get 8 slides of content. That's it. Right. It should take no more than 20 minutes to present and probably only about 10 minutes to review. That's the 20 part. And then 30 is every font needs to be in 30-point font or bigger.
Yikes.
Don't write what you can show. So if you have a graphic, if you have a picture, if you have something that's a motive or some sort of graph or chart or whatever that would take the place of 4 or 5 or even 6 bullet points, use the picture, use the graphic. Don't use the words, right? If you look at how those, and Isis, to your point, yikes is right. It sounds really hard, but I got to be honest with you, it's a little bit liberating because you realize, like, I do not have to explain every last little thing. There's 2 reasons to do this. One is the presentation always goes better and is more consumable. That's number 1. But maybe more importantly, number two is exactly what you just said, which is decks are written too narrowly for an audience most times. And the decks that have a lot of verbiage are almost always guilty of that. So this deck, you need to know what the hell you're talking about. You need to be in the industry. You need to know something about this. You need to understand that, so that when I read average 90 minutes month of patient engagement, 2 hospitalizations prevented, you know, what matters about medication adherence. I mean, I do understand enough to understand that, but that's the point I'm trying to make. Imagine if you had one that was more about what are the outcomes, right? These are like, this is almost like you're pitching features, not benefits.
Yeah.
Right. So fewer people are going to the hospital. They're taking their medicine when they're supposed to. They're living a better, healthier lifestyle, and we're making money in the process. That's really what you're trying to say, right?
Yeah.
Just say that. Right? But that's my point. If you force yourself into that 10, 20, 30 kind of format, you don't have a choice. That's how things get explained. That's how things get illustrated in that deck.
Yeah, another way I've seen people talk about this information in a way that's more generalized is that in a way we are extending people's lives. So without these type of programs, they'll be dead like 3, 4, 5 years earlier. But if they, monitor their vitals, then they just live longer. Is it maybe another? It's just
So
one
are
way
you talking about lifespan, or are you talking about health span?
A bit of both. So health span is very relevant to lifespan in our situation in terms of.
Do you think they're kind of synonymous?
Yeah. If you are uncontrolled, meaning your blood sugar or blood pressure is very high for a long time, then you end up losing your eyesight, losing a limb, or losing a body part, and then that reduces how long you live. Based on that disability. I mean, it's because it is. It's like the reason why people do it. They just want to keep living.
Maybe it's prevention of like going into like a more complex chronic condition.
Yeah, pain, morbidity. But I'm just brainstorming on.
I think if I was taking a completely capitalistic look at this, I would say what you're trying to do is improve the health span and lifestyle for the largest portion of the U.S. population.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about the biggest market segment I can talk about, right? In a healthcare system that is not about wellness, it's about morbidity.
And morbidity.
Right. And you're not talking about that. You're talking about how do I improve the life, the wellness, the health span of the largest segment of the U.S. population. Boomers.
Yeah. I have 2 questions. One is competition, which has been kind of weird to talk about, because I think everybody we incorporate pieces of different markets, from nutrition to RPM to primary care management. And as we talk about differentiation, sometimes it feels it's difficult to say. I mean, I guess we use people, which is like a ding, because most people.
When you say use people,
I mean, outside of like health plans like understand and appreciate.
Are you talking about the solution?
The solution, like how are we different? And it's like, oh, you're looking at Livongo. It's like, oh, they use an app, but they're also serving people that are like 35 to 55. Like I'm serving people who are 65 and up. They're not using an app. They don't know. I don't even know what kind of insurance they really have. And so trying to figure out how strong does your competition have to be, and like how different do you have to say that you are in order to cross the threshold, which is like, because of course we're complementary, because the stuff that works, we're all gonna do. but we're going to have this small twist of like our position is we provide a holistic model, in the sense that we, for example, for our patients, a lot of them have uncontrolled blood pressure. And the thing is, if you just, of course, have a better diet, you actually won't have uncontrolled blood pressure and you won't have to take all these pills. And so, but that's
yeah, let me take a step back. Do you have any direct competitors that are doing something that is as much as 80% of the same thing that you're doing, or at least attempting to do? I mean, I know that there's like, Libre and the other ones, right, that do basic like glucose monitoring and stuff like that, but that is not what you guys do, right? So is there another competitor that you could point to that says, hey, they're trying to do basically the same thing we're doing?
Yeah, I would say like City Block is one of the folks that is closely in the sense that they use people to do services, specifically in like the Medicaid population though. And they're
What about
geographically, Omada is also in a younger population, but they do diabetes, where I'm also kind of learning that I can't be chronic condition focused, because doctors don't say like, oh, I'm only going to treat diabetic patients. Like, they're going to treat everybody. And so as we're onboarding, get everybody.
Well, and the reason I'm asking that is because maybe the way that you want to talk about competition is in the framework of the competition is the way that these chronic conditions have been treated before or are treated now, not holistically. So I think you want to think about the competition as being like the status quo of care versus any specific competitor. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, okay. Yeah, but how do I redirect that for an investor too? And they say like,
what do you mean?
Livongo. And it's like, well, standard care is.
Well, give me a specific, like when they say, what would they put, what would the pushback be or the question be?
I say, we focus on diabetes management. We offer, self-management courses, and also incorporate nutrition. And then they would say, well, doesn't Livongo also do diabetes management and they also do remote patient monitoring? It's like, yeah.
But they're doing it differently, right?
Yeah, they're serving a different audience that's way more self-sufficient, and they're only doing it through an app, and they only have health coaching.
There's your answer. No, I'm serious.
Okay.
You've already got the answer. No, I mean, I think the thing is like you can talk about a competitor if they're close enough to what you do, so you can paint the picture of like, this is how they do it, this is how we do it, and this is why we think our approach is better, or this is why hopefully the market tells us our approach is better. That's even more compelling. But short of that, you can always go like, hey, this is how, if you've got diabetes and you're over the age of 60, this is what your treatment options look like. This is what your doctor is going to tell you. This is what, WebMD is going to send you to, right? This is what Facebook is going to market to you. And none of those are a complete solution because X, Y, and Z. And obviously you're talking about how you guys are filling that gap and creating something that doesn't exist. Now, if somebody says to you, Isis, they go, hey, well, what about, ABC Corporation? Aren't they doing that? And go, they're doing a version of this. They're doing this, and this. Where we're different is X, Y, and Z. Yeah.
Okay. Circling back to that status quo, that just also feels like a great beginner slide, but what are your thoughts there? Like, hey, here's how they're currently treating chronic conditions, and this is what we do, and these are our results.
Yeah, it's kind of like how we thought about how you framing the problem now.
I think that's right. I think that's right. I mean, my gut take on that is, how do you weave that into the problem slide, right? Like, that is the problem. The problem is kind of multifold, right? So I would start with, how many people are left without any kind of wellness treatment or wellness support? Just goes without, right? Just maybe I'm on Medicare, maybe I'm Medicaid, maybe I don't have access to it, maybe I live in a rural community where nobody knows shit about shit, right? So right off the bat, this is how many people are going unserved. This is how many people are wanting service they can't get around these things. So I think if you thought about how Isis, how you weave that into the problem slide, that would be my first reaction.
Yeah, we start
And
that.
again, I'm sorry.
We say things like only 30% of patients are using chronic care management programs currently on Medicare. So it's like 70% hasn't even tapped into it, but we haven't said this how many people are demanding this service. I don't know how we can get that data, but that's an interesting way to even frame it.
As an aside, if you got to think about like what's a more impressive number, 70% aren't using it, or how many of millions of people does that mean, right?
Yeah.
So part of this is semantic. You got to think about it as a marketer. I'm not going to talk about a percentage. I'm going to talk about a number that's really freaking big, right? There's 350 million people roughly in this country. How many people are we talking about that 70% represents? It's probably a handful of millions, right?
Yeah.
Currently, there's 6.25 million people that are going without any kind of chronic care, right? Yeah. Based on patient surveys, based on this data set, based on this is how many of them, this percentage of them would pay up to X number of dollars per month to have this support, or would want their service provider to provide this level of support. You know, whatever represents what your gap, with the gap you're going to fill.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very bold way of throwing the problem in, making it easier to. I mean, it's kind of, we're already there. It's just I like the way he tweaked it a bit more in terms of the setting.
For the problem, I hate to keep harping on this one, but you mentioned it was multifold, which is so true. Because we technically get paid by providers by giving them assistance. We, of course, help the patients who actually benefit. And then the third party who benefits is the health plan. And so sometimes it's been super tricky for us to figure out what story are we telling? Because I mean, of course, it's easy to talk about the patient, but the patient doesn't directly pay. And then, of course, I want to talk about the health plan, but they're not actually one of our customers yet. And so it just always feels convoluted.
So think about it from the standpoint of like, if you can't show that you've already landed these, show interest from the market in your solution.
Okay, yeah.
So think about it this way, like Cigna Healthcare just launched X number of program and is going to spend $50 million in 2025 on the following solutions that we could provide that same healthcare system for $3 million.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, show interest in the industry going there. If you're too early to be able to say, well, we landed United Health, right? But you can say, like, this is what these companies are already spending on this, and they're spending too much, and they're probably not getting a good return. We know the market wants this, and trust me when you know this, but healthcare providers don't do anything until they have sufficient pressure from their subscribers or their or the payers to do something.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Yeah, I would say, and the thing that we've learned, and you know, this is your sales hat. We've learned the some of the ways that we've gotten went from a pilot to actual contract was actually by word of mouth. One of our doctors, who was like pretty much an advisor, told his friend, "You have 200 plus patients. I think half of them will qualify for this program, and you should do it." And so he was able, I mean, he set up the call, he really pushed it over on the other provider. And so we're also seeing, if another doctor tells you to do it and you trust them, like the whole referral, there's a huge opportunity for that as well. I mean, in terms of just showing there's some fit, early evidence of fit in our process. But all right, so we got a couple minutes left. I just want to recap on the easy things I was able to I think I'll be able to accept and move on. I'm gonna have to come back and look at more of the recommendations or changes, like 10 to 15 different tweaks. But the easiest one, I'm quickly able to move on with just rearrange. Right. I like how you said, and I'm anchoring towards, what is in it for the investor is the overarching theme to keep in mind, and even the what is it called, and even reframing the ag slide. I've gotten multiple feedback on, questions on that one, so that can be made easier. um and then also the 10 20 30, I think that was pretty easy to remember. And adjust, I've been seeing that theme of like, how do you simplify this? And the other one, I started something like that, is just some type of end message, intro blurb. But I even like the infographic. That was really easy. Well, not easy, but it was easy to remember in terms of, hey, should take advantage of this.
So since you guys, I think you guys are recording this message, so I'll
Yeah.
say it again. So you guys are recording this meeting, so I'll say it again. Here's what you want to do: start with the 10, 20, 30, right, and consider that your medium deck, right?
Mhm.
This is your deck. This is not your infographic email, intro. This is the deck that, let's say, a junior associate is looking at. Okay.
Yeah.
And so 10 slides, 20 minutes or less to present, 30 size font, right, or bigger. And then don't represent anything linguistically that you can represent graphically. Okay. And then the other thing is, and then make sure that it answers these questions, right? Why should I care? Why this? Why us? Why now? Okay. Why now? Why us? Why this? Why should I care? If your medium deck, the 10, 20, 30 deck, does that, then you've got a pretty good deck. And then the only other thing I would put over top of it is dumb it down, make it more universal. Don't rely on anybody having any idea that, about chronic pain management, chronic healthcare management, morbidity rates, like hospitalization rates. Like, take all that out and say, they've never looked at this, but they're a venture capitalist and they understand market size and opportunity, and that's what I'm going to spell out.
Okay.
And then the last thing is that I'm gonna make some of these changes, but I wanted to know if you can give us a warm intro to the Jemison Family Foundation, our family fund.
I can. I don't know that that's a huge good fit, but
Okay.
I actually think the foundation route is probably smart. But I think the foundation route is Regions, EBSCO, like the Stevens Family Foundation, Alabama Powers Foundation. It sounds like you might have already talked to them. But all these big companies have foundations that are more likely to hear this pitch in the problem scenario than in kind of the capitalist scenario. So whether they invest or whether they're willing to do a grant or whatever the case may be, I actually think the foundation route does make a lot of sense. Jemison Family Foundation is primarily set up for a very specific purpose, which is to raise money and invest in a specific, I believe, don't quote me on this, I think it's categorized as a cancer. But basically what happened was that David Brown's son, Austin, died of this very rare disease. And I think that's what they're focused on.
Sorry, Keelan's computer died. But okay, so they're focused on cancer. Are you affiliated with any of the other foundations that you mentioned?
No. But JW is definitely, JW would be.
Okay, so we'll have to
Yeah, JW would be, and so would well, really anybody on the Prosper staff. They're all dealing with them on a pretty regular basis.
Okay.
And they may have some better ideas too. The other people you should be talking to, just so they're aware of it, is the Community Foundation of Greater Birmingham.
Is that
Yeah, I believe I just applied to a grant to that group recently.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're aware of it. That's good to know.
All right. It's because is Red Hawk a healthcare investor? I'm sorry, you guys are agnostic, right?
With AFF, we're agnostic. Obviously, with the Prosper Healthcare, it's just around the accelerator program.
Okay.
But we do. I mean, like one of our most successful companies is technically in digital health. I mean, it's really more payments and processing within the pharmacy space. But I
Okay.
guess you could, well, and then Moment MD, they're doing well, but they're telehealth education. Interesting segment.
Yeah, but do you guys partner with any other healthcare investors that you think this would be interesting to?
The only other investor that we've co-invested with that has any interest in that is probably Benson Capital out of New Orleans. So I would say once you guys have this kind of medium-sized deck,
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to forward it over to them. No idea if they'll do anything. They have like true healthcare kind of investments. So like think like hospitals, like healthcare systems. But I couldn't tell you which ones. I just know that they're in the space.
And they're called Benson Capital?
Benson Capital. It's Gail Benson's family office. She's the owner of the Saints and Pelicans.
Got it. Okay. All right. We'll circle back once we get the deck in a better place and appreciate the introduction. But I'll also circle back to JW for the foundation SIP too.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Yep. Talk to you guys soon.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.